Hi, hello again. I thought I'd show you another video on my diesel heater. A little bit of more in depth, because I've only said that I've had a diesel heater. I haven't touched it, and you've got a rough idea where it is, but you haven't actually seen where I put it and how I put it in there, and what I've done to try and make it right. Because some of you have got micro campers and they don't get much smaller than this, as you've seen. In fact, I don't think that you can get really a smaller, reasonable micro camper. I wouldn't like to go any smaller. It'd be ridiculous. So the diesel heater, I think they're worth fitting in this size vehicle. It is difficult to get them in, I appreciate that, and it was difficult for me, even if I'd have tried to use the rear footwell, or what would have been the rear footwell if it had been the car version. Because of the exhaust outlet, it had meant that it had been so low to the floor, it had probably caught on every speed bump and it had probably been just ripped off. And not only that, you've got the diesel tanking way, so it is difficult to get them in small vehicles, but there's usually somewhere to get them in. I'll show you where I put mine. I'll show you what type of diesel heater it is, because it's just a cheap Chinese one. I think it was 80 pounds. Off eBay, but you get everything with it, and to be honest, you can't knock it for that money. Right, let me show you this. Right guys, so we're back in the van. The cushions are there. I've just put them up front so I can show you where everything is. So this is my box for the diesel heater. You can see that is because I've already pre-took this off. I'm just trying to show you around. Oh. That's the outlet. This does move about, by the way, so you can point it in any direction. So let's take the top off and see what's inside. So as you know, all my van's rubberized on inside. I've already took the screws out of this, so we can see what's inside it. So that's the diesel heater on inside my van. As you can see, that's where the outlet is going in, and that's what spins round. I've also put an air intake for the box because it needs to get air from inside the box, so it can force air out once it's been warmed up. There's also intakes on this side. This is just so that the box has got plenty of air so it can circulate out, so the heater can work properly. It's gone through the floor, as you can see, and also the wiring comes down in the side. Can you see the wire there? It goes round through back of this panel, or it could actually be in the floor. Oh no, it's in the panel. Look, the looks of it. It's gone through into that unit. It comes through that unit, back up into here, back into this part, and then into that remote control unit there, and that's what powers the diesel heater. I did it all in rubber so it can be wiped down, because don't forget, as you know, I put my bike in and things like that, and I still use it as a work vehicle. but that gives you some idea on how I've fitted my diesel heater. Right guys, because I didn't have an external tank, there's nowhere to fit it inside this vehicle. As you can see, it's really small, so there's no way I can fit it, and there's just no place for an external tank, and certainly not the size that I had. So I could have probably put it in the box, but I didn't know where I was putting the diesel at the time, and I wasn't sure. It made me back buying another box. And for how many times that you actually do use your diesel heater, I thought it'd be better to put it into the tank to feed it. So on some of my other videos, on the earlier ones, which I know are poor, and I might alter them and see if I can change the viewing angle so you get a proper widescreen like you are on here now. I put it into the diesel tank itself, so that's the reason why I left this cut out, so I could get to the sender unit, because I knew what it was, a sender unit, but I've never actually took it off. So that's my pipe going into my diesel tank. And what I did, I didn't actually take all I did was I took these off and took that off, and I looked at perhaps trying to take all the bolts out all the way around and redoing it, taking the sender unit out. That's something I didn't do. What I did is, once I took these pipes off, it left obviously the feeds and one thing and another. I've got an inspection camera, which is like it's just like a thin wire, and it's got a camera on there and with a light, so I can see in tight spaces and stuff like that. I think I used that to find out if there were anything going to catch, and I took the risk then that it wasn't going to catch once I'd put my inspection camera in. So what I did, I drilled a small hole there, and I just did it. It's only very, very shallow, is that plastic. It's probably 8mm, and I bet it took me 5 to 10 minutes to drill that one single hole, and that's because I cleaned all this out, and then I put a vacuum on it, and I drilled a small hole, and I only went to a certain depth, cleaned it out using the vacuum, and carried on until I eventually did break through, just so I didn't get any plastic in the tank, or trying to reduce as many burrs within that tank, and I don't think that there's any gone in. And then I managed to fit the pipe in, which is a nice snug fit. And then what I did is, sorry, my light's going. What I did then was blooming light. So what I did then was all I did was seal round it using some special seal, and that's where my pipe goes for what feeds my diesel tank. So the outlet for my diesel heater, I don't know if this is going to show on camera, there is there, and you'll see the exhaust, which is the one closest here, and then the black pipe, which is my air intake there, and also the green pipe. I know it's difficult to see, I'm trying to get you in a position. The green pipe is the diesel feed. Now they're so close together, are these, it's ridiculous, but that's exactly how it is. I'm just checking, make sure everything's okay, and it is. Everything's hunky-dory. So my actual, God, I'm upside down with my bloody phone on my back here. But the black pipe goes into my into there, which is my spare wheel, and it's set in there with a filter on, and that's what I've done. So it's actually in there, so it doesn't get covered in crap, but it's actually in there. I'll see if I can show you it. Now, God knows if you're going to see anything in here. I don't know if you can or not. I don't know if you can see any black pipes, because I'm just holding my phone as close as I can get it to you. But that's where my diesel air intake is, and that's what sucks the fresh air in. So I don't know if you can see it, because like I say, you're on my phone and even I can't see in there. You're right up against inside the spare wheel, or top of the spare wheel, which is underneath the vehicle. Right, so what happens is it comes from the diesel heater and then it runs all the way back down here, and that's where the actual fuel pump's fitted, which is at the back there, fastened to this rear cross member, and that's where my also filter is, and then comes all the way down and comes out of there, and that's my exhaust. If you noticed, I had to buy another separate part because that's originally where my exhaust ended, and what were happening, because it didn't have that extra piece on, it would go in from there, and it would actually just amalgamating all the gases underneath the spare wheel, and then it was sucking it back up, and that's why the carbon monoxide tester went off. But that's been altered because I've bought another piece of exhaust and then just sent it completely to the back, and it's been fine since. My diesel line then runs where all the wires go, and my other fuel line for the diesel tank it all runs parallel with that and goes into the sender unit, which I've shown you at the top. I know this is pretty difficult, but there you are, you can see there. Oh, that's a good picture of the pump and the diesel, and then it runs off, so that it just goes all the way down, and that's where it connects to. Now also, with having a diesel heater in my van, I've also got a carbon monoxide tester. It's a Fire Angel, and it tells you the temperature as well, does this. So it tells you temperature, click it again and it'll tell you parts per million, and that's the carbon monoxide, and you can see each bar as it goes up, and until it's a dangerous level, and then it'll go off. I really suggest that you do fit one of these, because that has gone off, because on my diesel heater, where I am parked, I'm parked at the side of a wall, and I was running it in winter just to see on how efficient it was, and how good they are. That what happened is, the exhaust fumes were sucking in from the air intake underneath the van, and that's because it was stood still and there were no wind or no air circulation whatsoever, and my exhaust pipe were a bit too short, and that it did take a while, but it did rise up. And I've had it so where it actually did go off. It might have took an hour and a half, that doesn't matter. If you were asleep, it'd still trigger. So you need, to fit a decent one of those, because I wouldn't have known about any carbon monoxide in the van until that were triggered. Because you might think you've got it right, like I did, but you can actually get it wrong. And it's more, it'd probably be unlikely it would have gone off, but I could have been parked somewhere where they were up against the wall or wherever and there were no wind, and that would have happened again. So make sure that if you go down that route, always fit a carbon monoxide tester. What I tend to do when I've got the diesel heater running or anything like that is that I've got wind deflectors on the side of the windows, which are about that deep, about I don't know, about 2 inch all the way around the window, and it just stops the wind from blowing in if the window's slightly open on motorways and bypasses and so like. What I would do is, because I've got no ventings, no windows in the back, and I'm not going to fit any, there's just no point. I'm not even going to fit a skylight, there's no point. I'm going to leave the window open slightly if I have the heater on, so I get fresh air in that way. So that's just a point to pick out, that you need a bit of fresh air in the van. I've got a carbon monoxide tester which stops in the vehicle. It's one that you can't remove the batteries, so once it's done, it's done. It's checked regularly, so if it were cold, I know that it's going to be right. I bought a decent one, and usually I wouldn't sleep with the heater on. If I were cold, I'd put it on, and then if I were all right. You know, it doesn't take long. Once it's well insulated, is the van really well insulated. You must know that if you've seen the builds. So when it gets warm, it actually stays warm, and it'll still nice and toasty. And once you're in your sleeping bag, or you're in your bed and one thing another, you're all right. So it's just something to point out. Always try and be a bit safer than what. Just don't take them risks. Yeah.